So dear students, today we are going to discuss the third module from the subject Basics of Civil and Mechanical Engineering. So in this module mainly we will be discussing the various components of a building or a structure in detail. So already in the first module we have discussed what are the various components of a building. So we are going to discuss each of these in detail in this module. So to begin with, we will start with foundations. So already we all know that any building or a structure can be mainly classified into two main categories, that is the substructure or the foundation and the superstructure. So substructure or foundation is that part of a building which comes below the ground level, and superstructure is that part which comes above the ground level. The foundation, being the most important part of the building, has to be properly designed to suit the soil characteristics of the soil available in the site. And the basic functions and classifications is what we are going to discuss in this topic on today's lecture. So we all know that foundations are the structural components of the building that are in direct contact with the ground soil, and it is this which transmits the load of the superstructure to the ground. So generally about 30% of the total construction cost is spent on the foundation, and also the soil on which the foundation rests, we call it as the foundation soil. Now coming to the various objectives of providing, or the various purposes or objectives of providing foundations. So as discussed, any structure or a building will be acted upon by various types of loads, namely the live load, the dead load, the wind load, etc. So the main or the first and primary importance for providing a foundation is to reduce the load intensity on the structure. So foundation reduces the total, or it distributes the total load coming on a structure to a larger area, and also it evenly distributes the load. So the non-uniform load which is acting on the structure will be evenly distributed to the subsoil if we provide a proper foundation. Another point is that a foundation provides a level surface. So once a foundation is laid, it actually provides a level surface, and that prepares a hard surface or a level surface over which the superstructure can be constructed or built. And we all know that the foundation is that which anchors the structure to the soil, or it fixes the structure to the soil, and hence there will be lateral stability. It will protect the building from the wind load, and it provides lateral stability to the structure. The other functions of the foundations include, say, it protects the structure against undermining or scoring or flood water, etc. And also it protects against the soil movements, prevent or minimize the cracks due to movement of moisture in the case of, especially in the case of soil which has very poor bearing capacity. And it provides a support to the structure, and it gives enough stability against various disturbing forces like the wind load, which was already mentioned, and also natural agencies like rain, etc. Now we'll be discussing what are the classifications of foundations. So foundations may be divided into following two categories. They are shallow foundations and deep foundations. So when the depth of the foundation is less than or equal to the width, then they are called as shallow foundations. And there's another name for shallow foundation. It is also called as an open foundation, and this is because it is normally constructed by the way of open excavations. So shallow foundations are usually constructed by excavating the soil by open excavations, and hence the name open foundations. Now deep foundations have a depth which is greater than the width, and hence it is called as a deep foundation. Now here we have a representation, a pictorial representation of the various types of foundations. So broadly we can classify it into shallow and deep foundations. Further, the shallow foundations can be classified into isolated spread footings, wall footings, combined footings, cantilever or strap footings, and mat or raft foundations. And deep foundations are further classified into pile foundations or pier or caisson foundations. So we'll see each of them in detail. Now coming to shallow foundations, as already I mentioned, shallow foundations are those in which the depth at which the foundation is placed is less than or equal to the width, or D is less than or equal to B, and it's also called open foundation for the reason because it is generally constructed by way of open excavations. Now on the basis of the design, the shallow foundations are classified as you see here, it is classified into the following, like namely the spread footing or strip footing, isolated column or column footing or pad footing. We have combined footing, then cantilever or strap footing, and mat or raft foundations. So now we'll see each. So strip footing. So what is a strip footing? It is also called as a wall footing, and they are normally provided for a load bearing wall. So the footing which is normally provided throughout the length of a continuous structure, we call it as a strip footing, and they are normally adopted for walls, and they are also classified into different types like the simple or the stepped. So a simple strip footing as shown in the figure here, you can see this is a simple strip footing. So here you can see this is a simple stripped footing. Now coming to isolated footing. So isolated or pad footing, as it is called, is the foundation provided for columns to transfer the load safely to the soil beneath, and when the load on the column is less, a spread is given under the column, and this is called as an isolated footing. You can see there is a spread provided at the bottom, and hence we call it as an isolated footing. Now the same isolated footings can be of various types as shown in the figure. So as you see here, there are three types, namely simple footing, a sloped footing, and a stepped footing. So a simple footing is normally adopted for light loaded or lightly loaded structures, and a stepped or a sloped footing may be adopted for medium and heavy column loads. And you can see that in sloped footing, the total width of the footing is gradually attained. You can see in the figure, the total width of the footing at the bottom is gradually attained, and these footings are constructed generally in stone masonry or using bricks or concrete or in a combination of all these. And then now you can see again the third figure, that is a step footing. The width is attained by providing steps. There is another figure which shows, see here you can see a step footing and a sloped footing. So now we'll see what is a combined footing. So when a footing is constructed for two or more columns, then we call it as a combined footing. So the shape of the footing may be rectangular or trapezoidal. I'll just show you the figure, and here you can see that it is normally used when the two columns are so close to each other that their individual footings will overlap. So if two columns are really placed very close to each other, what happens when you give individual footings, they are going to overlap. So in such cases, we give a common footing to both the columns together, and hence we call it as a combined footing. And a combined footing is also provided when the property line is so close that one column that is spread footing would be eccentrically loaded, and when kept entirely within the property line. Now by combining it with that of an interior column, the load is evenly distributed. So this is what we see here in the figure. You can see there are two types of combined footing, namely a rectangular combined footing and a trapezoidal combined footing. It's clearly shown in the figure. So usually the combined footings are adopted for say lift well columns, water tanks, then supporting columns, bus shelters, etc. And mainly, as I told you, they are adopted under the circumstances like two individual footings overlapping, or when the bearing capacity of the soil is very less, which requires more area for individual footings, and also when the footings are constructed near the boundaries of the plot. So combined trapezoidal footing is normally adopted when the column loads vary considerably. So here you can see when there are unequal loads which is borne by the columns, we normally go for trapezoidal footing, and when two columns carry equal loads, then we adopt the rectangular combined footing. Now coming to strap or cantilever footing. So here again a strap footing actually consists of two isolated footings that are connected with a structural strap, and the strap connects the two footings in such a way that the whole thing will behave as a single unit, and it is also designed normally as a rigid beam. So you can see in the figure that a strap footing, here you can see a strap is used for connecting the footings, and it is more economical, it's far more economical than a combined footing when the allowable soil pressure is relatively high and the distance between the columns is large. So here you can see in the figure, this is a strap footing, and there is another figure here. So I hope it is clear. So now we'll discuss what is a mat or a raft foundation. So a mat or a raft foundation is actually a combined footing which covers the entire area beneath a structure. So it may consist of a single continuous reinforced concrete slab or an inverted beam and a slab construction. So here the load is transmitted to the soil by a continuous slab which covers the entire area of a building. And when do you adopt a raft foundation? So they are normally adopted when the load is heavy but the bearing capacity is less. So when the structural load is very heavy and the bearing capacity of a soil is very less, then normally we go for the mat or the raft foundations. This is one reason. Then also when the isolated footings of each columns require a larger area, even then we adopt a raft or a mat foundation. And it is also used in highly compressible soils, etc., and also to counteract the effect of hydrostatic uplift. So we can use a mat or a raft foundations. Now here you can see here the walls, the columns, everything, and the foundation is the plan shows the foundation here provided, that is provided throughout the entire base of the structure. So there is another figure here which will clearly explain what exactly is a mat or a raft foundation. So next we'll see what is a deep foundation. So as already discussed in the definition, what is a deep foundation? It is a foundation which has a depth greater than its width, and the foundation having very large depth compared to the width, we normally call it as the deep foundations. And there are different types of deep foundations, of which pile foundations are the most important, and we'll be discussing what is a pile foundation, what are the different types of pile foundations in this chapter. Also you can see that unlike the shallow foundations, in the case of the deep foundations, the foundation transmits the load of the superstructure vertically to a rock strata which is lying deeper in the soil. And also deep foundations are normally used when the shallow foundation cannot support the load of the structure, that is heavily loaded, extremely heavily loaded structures, then we go for a deep foundation. And the deep foundation is normally required to carry the loads from a structure through weak compressible soils or fills onto stronger and less compressible soils or rocks which are found at a greater depth. And normally the deep foundations are used in places where the bearing capacity is very less, and also at places like where the water table is at a higher level. So broadly we can classify deep foundations into the following three types of foundations, namely the pile foundations, the pier foundations, or the well or caissons foundation. So what is a pile foundation? So a pile foundation is a foundation which is normally used when the bearing capacity of the soil is less, and also when the load to be transferred to the underground strata is too high. So it's actually a slender structural member which can be made either of concrete, or which is usually made of concrete, steel, timber, or any composite material to transfer the load. And normally, as I already mentioned, it is normally advocated under circumstances like the soil being too loose, but still a hard strata is available at a depth, say about 14 to 15 meters, or due to heavy dead or live loads. Then the position of the water table, which is likely to fluctuate appreciably, and also it is for example, near the seashore or the river bed where the scoring action of water occurs, and the subsoil water level is very high, etc. So these are the cases where we normally adopt, or we prefer a deep foundation. And here, as you see, the pile foundation is one important type of deep foundation. There are mainly three categories: a pile foundation, pier foundation, and the well foundations. So we'll see what is a pile foundation. So we'll see what are the different types of pile foundations. So as you see here, piles are basically classified into various categories based on their materials, based on their functions, and based on the mode in which the load is being transferred. So based on the function, piles are classified into the following three types, namely bearing piles, friction pile, and combined piles, that is both bearing and friction. Then based on the material, again they are classified into timber piles, concrete piles, and steel piles. And again, based on the method of installation, they are classified as large displacement piles, small displacement piles, and non-displacement piles. So in the next section, we'll be dealing in detail what are the different types of piles in detail. So for now, we'll end this session. So I want you all to attend the quiz that will be following the lecture. So based on this, we'll be providing marks to you all.